In February 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out into the frozen wilderness of Russia's Ural Mountains. They were young, skilled, prepared. But weeks later, rescuers would discover their abandoned campsite, and a mystery that still haunts investigators to this day. What happened on that mountain remains one of the most disturbing unsolved cases in history. This is A Raven's Tale. The group of 9 hikers were young, but experienced. All were students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute and highly trained in winter expeditions. Their leader was a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. Dyatlov was known among his peers as a skilled outdoorsman, someone who had already completed several difficult mountain expeditions. The journey they planned was considered challenging, but not impossible. Their goal was to reach a remote mountain known as Otorten, a peak located deep within Russia's Ural mountain range. To get there, they would need to cross a nearby mountain pass, a place known to the local Mansi people as Kholat Syakhl. Translated into English, it means the Mountain of the Dead. Despite the ominous name, the hikers pressed forward. What happened next would become one of the most disturbing mysteries in modern history. January 27th, 1959. The group set out on their journey, all carrying heavy packs filled with food, equipment, and cameras to document their expedition. Their destination was far beyond the snowy forests of the Ural Mountains, a remote peak called Otorten. The journey would take several days, across deep snow, through freezing winds, and over dangerous terrain. At first, everything seemed normal. The hikers laughed, took photographs, and recorded their progress in personal journals. These images would later become the last known record of the group's final days. But as the expedition continued, conditions began to worsen. Heavy snowfall slowed their progress, and powerful winds pushed them off course. By February 1st, the group found themselves on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, the Mountain of the Dead. That night, something happened that forced 9 experienced hikers to flee their tent into the frozen darkness. When the hikers failed to return from their expedition, search teams were sent into the mountains. For days, rescuers combed the frozen wilderness, battling heavy snow and brutal winds. Then finally, they found the campsite, but something was terribly wrong. The tent had collapsed beneath the snow, and when investigators examined it more closely, they discovered something chilling. The fabric had been cut open, not from the outside, but from the inside, as if the hikers had suddenly slashed their way out in the middle of the night. Even stranger, footprints were visible in the snow leading away from the tent. 9 sets of tracks, walking downhill toward the forest. But the footprints revealed something even more disturbing. Some of them were barefoot. Others were wearing only socks. Whoever left that tent had done so in extreme panic, in temperatures that dropped below minus 30 degrees, and they had run straight into the frozen darkness. Nearly a mile from the abandoned tent, search teams made their first discovery. Beneath a large cedar tree at the edge of the forest, they found the bodies of 2 hikers. The pair were lying next to the remains of a small fire, as if they had desperately tried to stay warm in the freezing darkness. But the conditions were brutal. Temperatures had fallen to nearly minus 30 degrees Celsius. The two hikers were dressed in only thin clothing. No boots, no winter coats. It appeared they had fled the tent with almost nothing. But the mystery deepened as searchers continued their investigation. Between the cedar tree and the abandoned tent, they discovered 3 more bodies. Among them was the expedition's leader, Igor Dyatlov. The hikers appeared to be moving back toward the campsite, as if they had tried to return to the tent, but never made it. The remaining 4 hikers were still missing, and what investigators would find next would make the case even more disturbing. Months later, as the snow began to melt, search teams made another discovery. Buried deep beneath the snow in a nearby ravine, they found the remaining 4 hikers. But what investigators discovered this time was far more disturbing. Several of the hikers had suffered severe injuries. One victim had a fractured skull. Another had multiple broken ribs. The force of the injuries was so powerful that investigators compared them to the impact of a car crash. And yet, there were no signs of a struggle, no defensive wounds, no footprints from another attacker. Even stranger, one of the hikers was missing her tongue and parts of her lips and facial tissue. But perhaps the most puzzling discovery came during forensic testing. Some of the victims' clothing contained traces of radiation. Investigators struggled to explain how this could be possible. In the end, the official report offered only a vague conclusion. The hikers had died as the result of an unknown compelling force. In the decades since the Dyatlov Pass Incident, many theories have attempted to explain what happened that night. Some investigators believe the hikers were caught in a sudden avalanche, a wall of snow forcing them to escape their tent in panic. But critics of this theory point out that the slope was relatively gentle, and no clear signs of an avalanche were ever found. Others suggest the hikers may have been exposed to a rare natural phenomenon known as infrasound. Low-frequency vibrations generated by powerful winds moving across the mountains. Some researchers believe these vibrations can cause sudden feelings of dread and irrational panic. There are also darker theories. Some speculate the hikers may have wandered into a secret Soviet military test, perhaps involving experimental weapons or radioactive materials. And of course, there are theories that venture even further into the unknown. Strange lights were reported in the sky around the same time. Some believe the hikers encountered something that science still cannot explain. But despite decades of investigation, no theory has ever fully answered the question that remains. What truly happened on that mountain in the winter of 1959? More than 60 years have passed since the events at Dyatlov Pass. The mountains remain the same. Cold, silent, unforgiving. The abandoned campsite, the scattered footprints, the strange injuries. Each discovery raised more questions than answers. 9 hikers entered the wilderness in the winter of 1959. None of them would ever return. Investigators searched the mountains. Scientists studied the evidence. And yet, the truth behind that night remains hidden somewhere beneath the snow of the Ural Mountains. Perhaps one day the mystery will finally be solved. But until then, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most chilling unsolved cases in modern history. Only this, and nothing more. If you enjoy strange mysteries and forgotten stories, consider subscribing. Until the next mystery, this has been A Raven's Tale.